good morning, and welcome to everybody today on this live. I'm filming from Nelson, New Zealand. It's great to be here with you. Today we're going to be talking about becoming selfish, which is a very interesting topic, and I'd really like to acknowledge you for being here today. If you are joining me on this live, it is fantastic that you are actually taking the time to prioritize your personal growth, which is the essence of today. So if you are tuning in, I would like to know who you are. Please say hi, and I'd love if you could just drop in who you are in the comments and where you're tuning in from. That would be amazing. And for those of you who are watching this on replay, hashtag replay. I love it when people are actually commenting and participating, which is really beautiful. So feel free to ask questions today. Let me know what you're taking in and understanding so that I can be here every week to serve you guys and give you all of this information. So, Trev, no way, from BAM, I love it. Nice to have you here, and I'm so glad that you're prioritizing yourself, becoming a little bit selfish, which is an awesome thing, and that's what we're going to unpack. And now, the reason why this is so important is because in our society, we have so much stigma around the word selfish and becoming selfish, and I think a lot of this stems from the industrial ages and having to be so studious and then working so hard, and then anybody that was seen to be not doing that ended up being reprimanded for prioritizing themselves or their needs. And that kind of flow-on effect from the generations has really scrambled our generation, because I really think that people now do have the right to prioritize their needs and be able to, not that they didn't then, but it was harder and harder working conditions and obviously making a living. But now, couldn't you agree that we do have the freedom and flexibility to be able to prioritize ourselves more? And that's why it's really important to talk about this, is because there are some societal beliefs that keep us trapped in a way of thinking that we have to be a certain way, or we have to be selfless, or we have to give to other people. And we definitely do. That's a part of it, and I'm not saying that we don't, but I really like the topic of becoming selfish, because the word selfish, it definitely brings up some emotion in people, and they don't ever want to be seen as selfish. And so they perpetually avoid that by running around like a blue-ass fly, saying yes to everybody. So that's what we're going to go into today. So really important part about this is basically there's two parts to becoming selfish. There's you, and then there's others, right? And so what we're going to unpack today is about your relationship with others and your relationship with yourself. And that's really important, because you got to know the difference between what you are doing as a need for yourself and just fulfilling that need, or that emotional need, or that physical need, or whether you are just saying yes and doing what other people expect of you because you put that pressure on yourself that you have to. And it's definitely something to talk about and bring into your awareness, because when we don't make conscious decisions around these things, that's when we end up working on automatic and not, well, first of all, fulfilling our needs, but secondly, not making great choices around who we want to be and who we want to hang out with and why we want to hang out with them. And these are all just really conscious choices that we need to make in our lives. So I'd like to know from you, Trev, and anyone else that's watching, like, what do you struggle with? What do you find is the hardest when people are asking you to do things with them or for them? What challenges do you have around this topic? And I'd really like to just get some information from you so that we can bounce off that. And while you're busy typing away, just really want to bring to light, a very important part of this is that there is a big difference between becoming selfish and being needy. Can you get that? Like, it's different because people kind of associate them together sometimes. Is that selfishness? Does that mean that I'm being needy? Well, no, because neediness is something totally different. Neediness is relying on others to meet your needs, as opposed to you being able to meet your own needs. So I just really wanted to differentiate that, because I think a lot of people misinterpret what selfishness is. And it's literally just prioritizing yourself and meeting your own needs instead of expecting others to meet it, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to read a couple of comments here. Hi Tobias, nice to see you. And also Gracie Grace tuning in from Canada, love it. Challenge would be how to say not interested if you feel like you might hurt their feelings. Oh, awesome point there, Grace. Yeah, definitely that is a challenge that a lot of people deal with, is not wanting to hurt their feelings. And we will definitely unpack that further today. But what I will say is that when you understand that you have certain relationships in your life, and some of them are really close relationships. So, for example, if you were to say that to your daughter, Grace, and just say like, hey, I'd love to do this with you, but I actually need to have some me time first, then you could expect that she would understand that. You could have that expectation. It needs to be reciprocal. You know, she needs to accept you as you are, and you need to accept her as she is. Then, so there's those close relationships. And then there's sort of the relationships that are on the next tier, the next layer, that are friends who, you know them well, and they're probably more like ideas friends that you don't disclose, you're not necessarily vulnerable with them, but they're still friends in your friend group. And I think that's normally the group that people are talking about, that they don't want to offend that person. And quite often it's actually important that you recognize that you don't actually have control over anybody else's reactions or responses. And so when you're looking out for your own needs, as long as you voice them in a way that is understandable, well, after that you can't really do anything else about it. And that you feel like you deserve that you can fulfill your needs. You know, I think that's the shift. If you said to somebody like, hey, I really need some me time today, I'm feeling a little bit burnt out. Do you allow yourself to have that time to feel, to have that me time? And then in that circumstance, you giving yourself permission to do that should reflect in the way that you communicate that. So like, hey, I really need me time right now. I'm feeling a bit burnt out. I'd love to hang out with you another time. And responding like that is a way that people will really feel that authenticity. I think that's the major difference. If you're not 100% sure about what you need, then when you go to communicate that need, you're not actually communicating it very well. So the other person might get a mixed message, and then might, judge you or have that other opinion. But ultimately, first of all, you need to know your needs. And then secondly, you need to be able to recognize that if that person doesn't understand, that that's actually outside of your control, and that what you're choosing to focus on is meeting your own personal needs, means that later on you'll have more space and energy for them. Does that make sense, Grace? I hope that helped a little bit. But just definitely recognizing that there's different layers of friends, and that the really close family, those really close relationships that are really nourishing relationships, that, you need to give and receive, and respect that person for exactly who they are, and allowing them to meet their own needs and giving them that space. Well, that needs to be reciprocated from those friends in your close circle. And maybe if it's not, maybe they're not that close of friends. Maybe they aren't the one that you're able to be that vulnerable with. Yeah, does that make sense? I hope that helped a little bit. Oh, hi Gabby, fantastic. Love to have you here on the live today. Oh yeah, Tobias, really nice to meet you as well. I'm so glad you're tuning in, and awesome that you're getting this information. Okay, Trevor, I like this. I make myself available for helping a lot, driving someone, fixing their stuff, even to listen, but to be nice to hang out with these people outside of being needed for something. Oh yeah, so true. That's an awesome point. And actually it goes back to what I was just saying in regards to the circle thing, the inner circle of friends and the outer circle of friends. That inner circle of friends, to just be there with them regardless of the situation, and like love them for their fuck ups and love them for just the person they are being, instead of helping them all the time. And obviously there's that level of help that people need in that reciprocal relationship. But maybe those other friends that are on the outer tier, on the second circle of friends, they might be more sort of the ideas friends. And maybe you do need to set those boundaries clear with yourself. Like, what kind of friends are these? And am I just meeting their needs on a whim, but it's not actually mutual? Maybe there needs to be a question around the relationship itself, and whether you can just be with them regardless of, they just have that feeling that they want to be with you. And that's reciprocated, that you just want to be with them regardless of the situation. So that could be a bigger thing to unpack, is that relationship. And maybe asking yourself, like, are they meeting my needs? And should I be running around after them, like you said, meeting their needs, or teaching them to be more resilient on their own? Or reflecting back to them, like, hey, I noticed that actually I've been doing these things for you, and I feel like you're fully capable of doing them on your own. Or just opening that conversation to be able to grow as friends. Maybe they don't realize that they're actually relying on you all the time. Maybe they think that you are really happy to help, and you probably are. You're probably admitting that, but having that more honest conversation with them, being able to be more vulnerable, to test whether they are that vulnerable friend, and expose yourself a little bit more and say, like, I don't actually feel comfortable doing this all the time, because I'd like to just hang out as people as opposed to having to help each other. So I hope that resonates with you, and maybe gives you an idea about what you can actually do in these relationships and in these circumstances to make to first of all know your own needs and recognize whether they're going to be met with this friend, or being able to understand more about that relationship. So I hope that helps. Yeah, love it. That's an amazing point, and that's very good that you say that, because I think a lot of us are too eager to please and wanting to help those friends. And especially if you're a really capable person, then you are able to just do these things, and it doesn't cost you that much energy. But having that really reflective sort of overview, you have a lot more awareness, like, what is this bringing me? And you can ask yourself those bigger questions that maybe will help you in those relationships, either build stronger relationships or changing those relationships. So there's a few good points for you. And the other thing is that, especially talking about these relationships, is when we start to become more self-focused and prioritizing our needs and really working on our personal development and being able to say no, you actually attract friends to you, or you actually attract people to you that are okay with that stronger personality. And this is a big one for me, because I recognize that if people can't handle my personality the way that I am, when I am saying, like, no, sorry, I can't do this, and they judge me for it, or they decide, and it makes it really clear and simple about whether I want them to be my friends or not. And then, as I've developed myself and I've started really prioritizing my needs, then the people around me also seem to start doing that. When you start to notice that, oh, actually so-and-so has said no to this because they need to look after themselves, or so-and-so has set really good boundaries here. Well done, her. And so it's fantastic as you start to develop yourself like that. It becomes more evident in your circle of friends. you're actually positively influencing the people around you, you know, how much more time would you have if you weren't constantly people pleasing? How much more energy would you have if you were doing the things that you wanted to do 100%, and then it wouldn't cost you so much energy because you wouldn't be going against your values or who you are as a person. Is this making sense? Hope that you're loving it, and I really love to bring all this information to you because I just love it. So great. I really love when people start taking time to just design their lives, think about these things, recognize these relationships around you and what they mean, and being able to meet your own needs and recognize that it's okay to meet those needs is so powerful, because you know, you're the driver of your bus. You're the one that needs to make the decisions for your life, and the more selfish you can become, the more that you have that power, that internal fountain of energy that you can then give to others. Yeah, there's actually a quote about how you want to fill up your own cup before you fill up the cup of others. Well, there's a nicer one that I love, is you need to feed people from the saucer. So once your cup is filled and it's overflowing, then the saucer will get filled, and that's what you can give to others. And the saucer will be constantly filled if you're constantly filling up your cup. So next time you have a cup of coffee or a tea and it's a cup and it's a saucer, think about that, you know. You will really find that prioritizing yourself will give you more time, will give you more energy, will give you more focus, and then you can give that to others. Gabby, I'm just reading your comment here. Yes, definitely makes sense. It's really important to realize that taking time for ourselves is essential for a stable mental health. Yes, exactly. And having that sound mind, if you have these expectations of others running around in your head, you've got so much more to think about. Oh, so-and-so thinks I should do this and I must do that. But recognizing that you now prioritizing yourself can just ask yourself, what do I need? What will this situation give me? And then the voices on the inside will calm down, and you will be able to have a more just aligned version of yourself. And interestingly, with those words that we use, you know, I should do this, I must do this, there's a pressure with those words, and it really holds something over us. I must do it. So maybe thinking about your language that you're using and changing that to I choose to do this, because then you're presupposing that you have a choice, and you always do have a choice. And using empowering language to help you make those decisions, you know, I choose to be here, or I'm willing to be here, instead of I must or I should. And catch yourself on those little things, because that pressure that you're putting on yourself doesn't actually come from the person at all. It comes from you interpreting their reaction and then putting that pressure on yourself. And if you want to get down to the nitty-gritties, you're choosing to feel that pressure. And that's a choice that you make, whether it's subconscious or conscious, now that you've had this information. But you can actually just choose to be there, and it makes you so much more empowered that actually you didn't have to be. If you didn't want to be, you could choose to be somewhere else. So really nice thing to take away from today maybe is just recognizing your language around these things, and even that simple thing could change the way that you interpret those situations. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to become more selfish? And maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, what if you have children and you can't become selfish? You have to be there. Well, unfortunately, I want to say that children are, you have to be there, definitely. And there's always a choice for you to organize your time and prioritize yourself. So yes, there's a massive demand for your time, and you can, because you know that you can create a lifestyle or a way that you can balance these things and still prioritize yourself. And whether it's even in your daily life, making sure that you do one thing a day for yourself, or whether it's having 10 minutes of meditation before you get the kids out of bed, or whatever it is that you've decided, that's a really big one. Mums are really busy humans, but you can also definitely still prioritize yourself. And I think that mums that do prioritize themselves, they teach their kids how to have boundaries, they teach their kids how to meet their own needs, and ultimately they are more congruent with who they are because they are connecting to themselves, they're learning about themselves, and then they will end up living a more fulfilled life. And that the less stress that you have, it's better for the child. Just so important. So we've talked about that, but I also think that a lot of people in society just want to fit in. They just want to do what the crowd is doing because, everyone else is doing it. And I think that this is a very normal fear to have, the fear of not belonging. And so we end up using that, or that fear ends up governing us, and we end up doing all of these things just to fit in. And I'm here to tell you that it's okay to not fit in, that it's okay to prioritize your needs, because ultimately you will find the people that you fit in with better if you prioritize your needs, you know what you want, you're able to vocalize it, you're able to have those conversations that are more open with people, and then you will find true acceptance in other circumstances. So just wanting to fit in isn't a good enough excuse anymore, because you know that you have a choice and that you will always find your people. As long as you seek, you will find. And so going back to the how we're going to do this, well, the first thing is knowing what your heart says, knowing what your needs are, and being able to really zone into those things and start prioritizing them. Is there a hobby that you wish you did and it's on the end, to the back of your mind, and it has been for ages, but you haven't actually taken the time to bring that into your life? Or do you want to have better conversations with your partner, but you don't actually take the time to build that infrastructure? And listening to these little niggles within you actually help your authentic self come to the surface, and then you start living congruently with who you are as a person. So I'd like to ask you, what is it, that one thing that you haven't started doing yet in your life that you really want to do? I'd love to know from you guys what that thing is, so that you can start prioritizing it and start putting more effort in. Because once we know these things, then we can head towards them. But if we don't know them, then we kind of do our day in, day out, going along and not necessarily knowing what we want. So we're not actually aiming towards anything. And I think that that's really important to have these goals. And even if you don't have time right now, what could you be doing today to set yourself up for the future? And reading 4 pages of something a day, or listening to podcasts about it, or anything. But if there's a little niggle that you want to start salsa dancing, for example, or you want to do the trombone, that is a need, and there's a reason why we have these urges. And the more congruent you can be to yourself, the happier and more overall you will feel more fulfilled overall, because you've started to listen to those niggles and then really start creating your ideal life. So just while you're commenting there, if you've got something in the back of your mind that you would like to start doing, I'd love to know, and just start to unpack that, because it's really beautiful to gain awareness around these things. And now we briefly talked about relationships before and the relationships that you have with people. And the relationship that you have with yourself is so important. Like, what are the standards that you have for yourself? And are you living true to those standards now? And could this becoming selfish really improve help you live to those standards? Because you are taking time to prioritize yourself, to create the life that you want, to ultimately then be able to give back to others. So that's really important to know those things and to have that standard. And also to have a vision for yourself that is bigger than the vision from the people around you. You know, if people think of you and your potential, that's amazing. But what do you think about your potential? What do you feel like you deserve in this life? Are you able to say, I want to have the $250,000 paycheck and a big house, and then actually work towards getting those things? Do you feel like you are allowing yourself those amazing things because you have enough self-worth that you want to be able to work towards them? And just even having that bigger picture for yourself makes you prioritize yourself. If you're living in limbo, just every day, day in, day out, not actually working towards something, well, then of course you're not going to prioritize yourself, because you're busy at the whims of everybody else, because you don't have that focus, you don't have that goal. So it's really important for you to create that vision for yourself. Yeah, and going back to just accepting that it's okay to put your needs first. I think that's a really big one, especially for mums, especially for people in a relationship who maybe their partner doesn't understand that it's okay to prioritize your needs, and they make you feel bad about it. Well, it's very important that you know within yourself that it's okay to put your needs first. That once you've heard this message, filling up your cup so that you can feed someone from the saucer is the only way that you can access your true power. Because if you keep on doing everything for everyone else, well, then your light gets dimmed. And slowly and surely it'll be going out. So to shine your light bright, you need to know what those needs are, and you need to be able to live your best life. And to do that, you need to be a little bit selfish sometimes. You need to say no where no is appropriate. Maybe you can just try to say to people, yes, I would love to do that, and I'm going to meditate first, or and I'm going to, and then insert need here. So really putting that message out there that you are happy to do the things so you don't offend the person, and explaining yourself that you need to do something for yourself first. Just having that really nice open communication with them about those needs. And it starts to rock the boat sometimes when we are starting to build these new behaviors, maybe within your family, you know, especially if you are a mum. What actually happens is people are not used to you putting your foot down. And sometimes it's really hard at the beginning because people will react strongly if it's a new behavior. And so maybe a belief that you could create around that is that it's okay to rock the boat, that you don't have to keep everything flowing really seamlessly within your family dynamic, within your friends group. Like, can you intuit this? Can you think about how important it is to be okay with rocking the boat, to be okay with allowing chaos into the situation, that you don't always have to have control, and you can start making radical decisions today, radically improving who you are as a person, because you just made the decision that from now on, when people ask you to do something, you are going to put your needs first. And then if you want to do it, fantastic, go and do it. But know that rocking the boat is a really important part of the process of this learning, that the chaos will come And when it comes, you will have the tools to deal with it because you will be stronger within yourself. And slowly, surely, the pattern will change, and then you'll end up prioritizing your needs, living congruent with who you are, showing your authentic self, and then being able to shine. That's what we all want. We all want you to step into your potential, and that's really important. And now, when we are promoting growth within ourselves, it's also really important to prioritize the people that we're hanging around with. So going back to those relationships that we were talking about before, the inner circle and the outer circle, and the acquaintances that we spend every day with, who is the people that are promoting your, or who are the people rather that are promoting your growth? Who are the ones that you're getting energy from, as opposed to having to give energy to the whole time? And looking at that, and maybe becoming selfish means that you have to say no to a few relationships because you're ultimately deciding that you want to be the best person that you can be, and you've only got an X amount of time or bandwidth, and you want to prioritize that with the people that truly matter in your life. And those are really the relationships that you want to nourish, to give that person the amount of energy that you will then get back from that person, and recognizing that that's okay, that you don't have to always have 100 friends. I used to be like this back in the day, wanting to have being friends with everyone, and now slowly starting to close my circle, because I know that the relationships that are really important to me, I spend a lot of time on, and I really value them, and they are the ones that are okay with me meeting my own needs and being able to be vulnerable and express that with them. So what are you guys loving so far about this message? Was there something that really stuck out and you thought, yes, that's definitely something I want to implement in my life? What are the things that you find interesting that you haven't heard before, maybe? Because all of this it's all great information, but nothing happens unless you do something with it. So recognizing that implementation is the only way for anything to happen. So what commitments are you making to yourself today that will really propel you towards that person that you want to be? So there's a 3-step process to becoming selfish, and I've written them down because I think that it's really easy to hear this message and then not do anything. So I just wanted to make it super simple. So, step number 1 of becoming selfish, identifying your needs. Those are emotional needs, physical needs, environmental needs. What are the things that you want you need in your life that are very important to you? So maybe looking at your values and thinking about those things. Oh, Gabby, I'm just reading your message here. To have even a better time management and prioritization, definitely. Yes, yeah. Time management and prioritization, that's incredible. Prioritizing yourself so that then you know what you can say yes and no to, therefore you will have more time, therefore you'll live more congruently with who you are as a person. That's awesome. Okay, so step number 1 is knowing your needs, identifying your needs. Step number 2 is voicing them to people, making sure that you are helping people understand what your needs are so that they can help meet your needs. And then the third one is learning how to feel that uncomfortable feeling of saying no and hearing no. It's a two-way thing. When you start to become more selfish, you start to be aware of people that are becoming selfish as well, and maybe acknowledging them for that. Well done for looking after your needs. There's a really simple exercise that I did in a dance class recently where we walked around and then somebody would ask you for a dance and you had to say no. And just sitting with that uncomfortable feeling was very powerful, because we're so used to saying yes that we then don't have boundaries, we then don't meet our own needs, and we have that awkward feeling. So maybe practicing saying no is a really good thing for some people, because actually it is a weird feeling, but that's okay. And just because it's a weird feeling doesn't mean that we don't change the behavior. That there is the emotional brain, and then there's the logical, this is better for our growth, and we need to push through that feeling because we recognize that on the other side it's way better for ourselves. I love this message because I think that we don't actually have opportunities in our lives to hear it very often, and we all just run around doing this, that, and whatever. But now making conscious decisions to look at your needs and then prioritizing them will make you happier as a person overall. And I'm just telling you guys this, but I'm also telling myself. I mean, it's so important for me to implement all of these things. And I'm definitely learning and growing as I do this research and as I bring it to you. I think that's very important. And there's a really nice quote: if you can't be selfish, you can't be selfless. And that's what I wanted to leave you with today, because I think it's beautifully said. And becoming selfish means that in the end you're able to give more and more and more, and that is what we want. Ultimately, as humans, we want to contribute, we want to be part of society, we want to help the people around us, and the more you prioritize yourself, the more you will be able to do that. And daring to just pursue your passions, daring to believe that you deserve to have those dreams that you have, and just working towards them. Allowing yourself that space to dream big and to prioritize yourself so that you can get to those places. So I've loved bringing you this message today, and it's really awesome to get your participation, and I really enjoy when you tell me these experiences, because yes, they are very important to be aware of, and there are so many things that we need to discuss and bring to the surface. So just encouraging you to have those conversations with your friends and with your family, to be a bit more vulnerable, to open up about how you really feel and what needs you need to be meeting at the moment. And those conversations will always help you grow, and other people can also reflect things back to you and help you in that sense. So that's all for me today, and it's been wonderful to be here on this Zoom Live with you again. I will see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.